Let's call to order the meeting, Lafayette City Council meeting for Thursday, December 8th, 2022. We're going to start with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get a roll call.
President Brungard.
Here.
Councilor Drebin. Councilor Gilgan.
Here.
Councilor Goulart.
Present.
Councilor Newman.
Here.
And Councilor Paulson and Mayor Sproul are excused. So you have 4 councilors present, Your Honor.
That's the quorum, really. Don't see our sheriff's deputy here. So if they are able to pop in,
Shantae Matlock is planning to be here, but
okay,
yes.
we'll circle back when she's
Yeah.
able to be there. Right. Like perfect timing.
Right on time.
That was spot on.
I try to be when I'm here.
Well, you're up.
Sneaking in the back door.
I apologize for not being here last month. We had
We heard.
a call, okay? Things kind of got crazy. So I don't know if you had the chance to go over those numbers. You did?
Yeah, we
together?
reviewed them briefly with the council.
There wasn't anything super drastic. We had a downtick in calls. The weather always changes things and that happens. So there's a difference of 73 calls. Total we had for the month of November, 282. Your Lafayette deputies still took 55% of those calls. And the only real big difference was like follow-ups. There was a difference of 15 the month prior, there were 28 in November. And the only other one that was a lot different was the traffic stops. So traffic stops were at about 88 in October, then 64 in November. Everything else was pretty much the same, which was great. So there's no big differences. There were less domestics, but that's not has anything to do with us.
No,
Civil
but that's
paper is
still
less
good
so.
news considering the
Absolutely.
time of year that we are in.
Absolutely. We did have one big incident at the Pioneer Mobile Estates with fire. And that kind of was our big building collapse. That was like something that you don't see a lot on the papers, but numbers wise, I'm happy to go over every single one of them if you'd like.
I'll defer to the council.
I don't think it's necessary.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Someone has questions.
Well, maybe you think something's necessary, but
No, there wasn't anything, just the traffic and then follow-ups was a lot.
Are there less speeders or just less time to be able to do that?
There were less speeders. We even sat and watched in a couple of our like big high speeding or stop sign running spots. And he even mentioned, oh my gosh, everybody's following the rules today. And I was like, actually, I've seen it. It's been about 3 weeks now.
Good.
It's still difficult to get out of Washington onto 3rd or Bridge onto 3rd, but for the most part, people are slowing down and watching stop signs. It might be due a lot to the change in it gets darker a lot sooner. And so they're a little bit more aware, which I think is great. But yeah, what's that? Any questions? Fantastic.
We're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Very much.
Have a wonderful night.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, approval of council minutes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of minutes here. Did everyone have a chance to look them over?
Your Honor, we did need to change some spelling of some names. Malcolmson, we'll make those corrections. A couple of pieces of that, and then on the resolution later. Also, there were several Cranmers at the last meeting, and they spelled our name Cranmer, not like our street, Cranmer.
Oh.
So we'll correct that too.
Yeah, and I mentioned that before, the developers misspelled their name, so the street Cramner is supposed to be Cranmer with an N.
Okay,
And I have no idea how to go about getting that street name changed, but I've mentioned that before, maybe it was a year or so ago, but yeah.
well, then you're the one that told me.
Yeah. Well, and so I got it circled all over the meeting minutes for the 10th, not the 25th, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's NM, not MN. Yeah.
Okay, so widespread correction of spellings of last names. Any other? I just need a motion.
For the, so I'm not sure, and you guys can let me know if I abstained, but it was a conflict of interest, so I don't know, is that the same thing?
No.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
the result might be the same, but for the record, if you have a conflict, that should be.
Yeah, so on page 2 of 6 for the minutes for the November 10th, it says that I abstained. I had a conflict of interest because I know the Cranmers, and that's why I abstained or did not vote. Page 2 of 6, November 10 minutes.
You want to say like, who are abstained due to a
Conflict.
Stated conflict. of-
So conflict of interest, I think legally is like a financial interest. whereas
You can say a personal conflict.
Well,
The
it's like
personal, yeah.
her abstaining from voting on anything fire department related in the past because.
Oh, that
she-
actually was.
That was-
Financial.
that was financial.
Okay, all right.
So there's.
I didn't know
potential-
that was
There's
financial.
potential and actual.
So, there's no financial conflict. It was just,
You could
I
say
know them, you
personal.
know, and so.
Yeah. So due
I
to,
didn't know if it made a difference or not. I'm fine with leaving it as is unless there's a definition that,
Well, you get to define your conflict. And so what we'll say is Goulart abstained due to a personal conflict of interest.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll just,
Yeah.
we can leave it at that. You bet.
thank you.
I think this is a record for how many minutes have been backed up and not approved, isn't it?
No, this is all real recent.
Yeah.
No,
Three of
because
these
there's
are
4 of
from
them.
these, right, but 3 of these
Well,
are from
you
this
had-
month,
Right.
or November.
You had
Yeah.
two special meetings
Several
last
times.
time.
Right. And then October was actually. I just don't think- That's what I'm trying to say. I just need a motion. Travis, sorry.
So it does say in here, we can raise our hand during this, so is that appropriate?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Travis Johnson, 1002 Market Street here in Lafayette. The only reason I raised my hand now is because I just happen to have something I wanted to ask, and you're discussing this very topic right now, that I, independent of what Greg brought up. So I was very curious in light of when a councilor or a mayor needs to recuse themselves, is there a requirement that they state the reason why? Because I've noticed that it's not necessarily consistent. And at one of the recent meetings, there was a councilor that was asked to give the reason, and I kind of noticed that. So I was wondering if you don't need to, then it's optional. So I just wanted clarification there if possible, but it's okay if not. Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that. So it's part of the council rules to encourage councilors to state their objections because it helps understand what the councilors are thinking. If they don't agree, why? But it's not a requirement. It's an encouragement that should be done as a matter of working together as a group. That is not being done all the time.
Thank you.
And just weigh in real quick. I personally don't think it should be required. I think it should be strongly encouraged. And that's just coming from my background. If if there was a party in front of us and I had to state a conflict of interest, for example, I wouldn't want to say that I represent that person in a legal matter.
Right.
Because that would be against my attorney ethics, or would put me in a rough place. So I think strongly encouraged is the right place to leave it, but everybody's gonna differ on that.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna muddle through this. I move to approve with all of the corrections for the last name of Malcolmson. Am I saying that right? And Greg's correction to approve the minutes for October 22nd, November 10th, November 17th, and November 30th. It says,
It's written wrong in the agenda. I mean, there's different.
Yes, it is.
oh, okay,
Are we on? Are we on YouTube?
October 25th.
Yeah, it's just turned off because there's no one on the screen.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Additions or deletions from the agenda?
I just had a quick question. Last month, we talked about revisiting the Kramer's request this month. Will we get an update from that at some point during the meeting? or-
I was gonna ask during the administrative reports, since they aren't here. I was kind of hoping they'd be here.
Yeah.
Where you had suggested, but they're not, so we can
That's a
do
great
that
time.
during.
Yes, and we can do that, and it will be on the agenda for January, for council to determine what you want to do.
Okay.
At that point with the temporary occupancy permit. Sweet.
Any citizen input on non-agenda items?
Yes.
Travis?
Travis Johnson, 1002 Market Street. So a couple things. First, I just want to say, I super appreciate everybody in here, including Kevin back there behind the scenes. It's just been a great year, and I just feel really blessed knowing each of you as neighbors and friends, and just very excited for the new year as well. And thank you for letting me interrupt the earlier part there. My question is also around that part, as we're going to be transitioning into a new year, around the area of citizen input on non-agenda items, and then the process of the person raising their hand and being recognized on agenda items. I can see it's part of the council agenda. Is this kind of a practice that continues year to year or mayor to mayor? Is this really spelled out, and how much will this be really each person that speaks comes to the podium, or if they can't speak from their chair, but fully give their name, address each time? And I'm just kind of wondering what the general guidelines are for that as we kind of head into a new year. So, but thank you again.
And before anybody answers, I just want to follow up with that, because I actually, as a citizen sitting out there where Travis is in the past, I have always appreciated Marie and past mayors allowing citizens and asking for input as we go through different items. Christine, you did it as well when you were acting mayor, interim mayor. And I just appreciate that as a citizen. So, I don't think it's required, but it has been appreciated, at least in from my perspective, and as Travis just pointed out. So.
Yeah, you are correct, Greg. There's nothing law that requires that process. But that was what you see is what was established when I got here. I didn't change anything. And this is very standard of all my experience in other cities. Encouraging input and deal with the non-agenda stuff quickly and take input as you go. It's a much orderly way to conduct the business.
I think so too. I found myself, because I didn't know for sure, I found myself in my 5 minutes addressing every single thing on the agenda, just because I didn't know if I was going to have a chance to speak. So, again, I don't think it's required, but I do appreciate the past mayors allowing that. So,
Mayor-elect.
Hillary Malcolmson, 915 Grant Street. I just wanted to give my input that I do appreciate and acknowledge the importance of that in a meeting. And to share that last week, I attended a 12-hour workshop on election essentials, including legalities, meetings and things, and walked away with tons of information. But one of the things was the discussion on public input, on conflict of interest versus potential interest and stuff. And so that is something that I look forward to taking on the role of. The biggest thing I walked away with was just whatever the choice is to make it consistent and to communicate the expectations. So I completely support and appreciate it being brought up, but I just wanted to interject that I do support it. So.
And that
But
is a great
Hillary,
class, I think.
Before you leave, you enjoyed the training.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, and you please encourage the rest of the council
I am.
to attend those. There will
Yes.
be more opportunities.
There'll be more opportunities, and they provided us a jump drive with all of the PowerPoints and notes, and it's also available online. And so I do hope to push that to them, but it was a great resource that Mayor Sproul put in my lap, and I was thankful to attend. So
It's something that's offered to all elected officials. I don't know how many people I've taken it. It's a great class. It's very worthy.
I
of
do
the
feel like
time.
it's very important to have the door of communication open, but it's much more efficient when you ask the citizens as we are discussing something instead of, like Greg said, when he like try to jump through, then you're so many other things that you don't really get the context of the citizen input when it's all crammed into this little spot instead of where you're actually discussing.
I'd just like to add, I agree, if it's too structured where citizen input is at the very beginning, the council has a discussion, if it leads off to a whole nother point, you know. I think that there should be flexibility that if citizens, you know, on that new point want to give some feedback or their opinions, that they should have the ability to do that, so.
It's more of an open dialogue that way.
Exactly.
So which takes me back to 12 years ago. The final format. So why was it the council meetings were going so long? 10:30, 12 o'clock at night. It'd be 9:30, 10 o'clock. Council didn't even get to the business section. Well, the reason why, because there were so many comments and citizen input. And there were a lot of concerns in the community, all of that. So we had a big discussion on it, very first meeting. This is my job to take care of those complaints. If I don't take care of them, they will come back. It's my job. And so all of those complaints, pages full of complaints, from 2 different citizen groups, all got resolved outside of this meeting. So don't try and tackle these. This isn't to tackle on problems. It's to do what's on the business agenda. There could be comments there, but do respect your city administrator's role in dealing with operational questions and complaints.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments on non-agenda items? All right, next up, we have a public hearing, and I'm sorry, this is the first time I've done a public hearing. It's now the only time I'll have done a public hearing, and we'll do. I'll try not to butcher this. All right, the purpose of this hearing is to conduct the first reading of ordinance 643, amending chapter 6 of the Lafayette Municipal Code. The first hearing.
Second.
First, this is the second reading though,
This is
right?
our second. Yeah.
Second reading.
I found a typo. All right, the purpose of this hearing is to conduct the second reading of ordinance 643, amending chapter 6 of the Lafayette Municipal Code. I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be stated? Does council object to reading the ordinance by title?
No.
No.
Save your voice.
All right. Let's see. All right, reading by title. Before the City Council for the City of Lafayette, Oregon, an ordinance of the Lafayette City Council making amendments to Chapter 6 of the Lafayette Municipal Code, Ordinance 643. Have there been any changes made since the first reading?
No, there have not.
Does the public have any comment? Does the council have any further comment? We can also discuss it during the next one, which is the action item.
I have no comment.
All right, I am going to close the public hearing. Wasn't that easy? A little complicated. All right, any discussion from the council? Discussed it quite a bit in the last couple of meetings, actually, these changes.
It sounds like the changes have been well thought out based on feedback from our code enforcement officer and working with Kevin. It sounds like too, the new administrator is kind of interested in reviewing some, so I think this is a good kind of dry run, kind of see how changing some goes.
I think there are quite a few that need to be changed, but this is a really good start and to make it user friendly, basically for easy understanding for everybody and very unified. So the language is correct in all of the applications.
And there are more changes coming. You know, this is the low hanging fruit. This is the stuff that makes a big difference. It's easier to change. The others are a little more complicated, but that's coming in another phase. Council.
All right, well, that just rolls us right into our action items, and we just need a motion.
Okay, I move to adopt ordinance 643, amending Lafayette Municipal Code Chapter 6.
I second that.
All in favor?
I
Unanimous. We are trucking right along, guys. Okay, this next topic is about modifying the facade grant eligibility, and I'm actually going to turn this over to Sheila. Got some more information for us.
So basically, we as a council increased the financial grant match program to $12,500. There is only 4 stipulations on approving the grant, and the issue that we ran into with the Kelty estate when they made the grant proposal or request is that they do not meet, the building must be in use for commercial purposes for 6 months prior to the application. So we had to deny it. So the discussion was had based on the other building that the grant was approved. The Jack Longman building. So correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe all of that grant has been used because it's not complete.
Correct.
Okay, but it was not an existing building when the grant was given, or an existing business, commercial business when the grant was given, and it is still not a commercial business. And if the purpose, which is the way that I understand it, the purpose of the grant is to help fix up the facades of the buildings, to bring in business and to improve business in the downtown area, then we really need to revise the building being in a commercial business for 6 months prior to, and perhaps look at making it and on the other side of that, like go out a year and say that it needs to be a commercial business in that timeframe, and possibly claw back if it does not meet that requirements. But that's just up to the administrator how they write the contract. So just with the straight directives that are given or the parameters, there's a lot of businesses on the downtown area that could use some facade improvements. Some of them are not existing businesses currently, so they will not qualify. It's kind of my thought is that if the council changes that parameter, then there's other businesses that could potentially utilize that, or other building owners that could improve their facades and then bring in businesses. I mean, that to me was the whole point of the program.
Yeah, I think a change like this would honor the spirit of the program itself.
Oh, yeah.
So forgive my poor memory. So the one that was approved that you had mentioned, what is that building?
It's the one direct across. It's the Jack Longman building, but it has a true value sign.
The boathouse, the two across from Bill's.
What happens there? It's not a commercial
They
business. was
fixed
it?
it up
Nothing right
and
now.
they sold it.
They fixed it up and they sold it. They didn't finish the, as far as I know, they didn't finish the scope of the work for which they got the grants. So the last part of the money was not given to them. But
Understood, but if it's not a commercial purpose, what was happening?
The intent originally was for it to be a commercial purpose.
And it was, and then they closed down, and then it was vacant, or, you know, there was a renter up above.
it was used as a
For a while.
residential building.
Yeah, so for this purpose, I would kind of prefer that they've been doing a commercial purpose for 6 months, because otherwise people could do the same thing. They could fix up the building and sell it. So I would not make this change.
So
So if the change isn't made, then there's a lot of other businesses that will not, or buildings that will not.
Buildings, sure.
Yes.
But I see this as a way to attract businesses and be able to bring businesses to town knowing that there's money there to renovate the building. I'd rather get businesses in there to utilize this than have a loophole that allows people to profiteer off of city grant money. Because they can literally just apply for it without having commercial business. Get it. And I understand you have the idea of the clawback, but clawbacks rarely work. And we talked about this with an employment situation. Clawbacks rarely work.
Yeah. And I wouldn't want to get into that situation.
The litigation situation over clawback.
The way it's administered is the way I have administered this program is to help them get started with half the grant up front. Once it's fully completed and they've done all their work, then they get the rest of it. So what was done at the Ferryman building, the True Value building, was substantial. But they didn't finish the grant. They've changed hands. They're going to have to come back and resubmit if they want the rest of the grant. That grant's over with. It's a fair way to administer it, and you don't deal with clawback stuff. But the idea is you want to bring a business into town. Okay, well, they want to renovate things. They want to make a better curb appeal. That's what the grant should be used for. You're saying no.
No, I'm
The
agreeing.
committee's saying,
I'm agreeing with you.
no, that doesn't work for a vacant building though, saying, this is the idea.
No, it does.
No, it doesn't. The grant parameter says this is not eligible if your building's vacant.
All it means is that they have to be in business for 6 months first.
That's right. Who wants to open for 6 months when they would rather renovate and move in?
People who write out business plans and understand how businesses operate, which are
This
the
is
kinds
law.
of businesses that we want here.
Yeah, this is Lafayette, Lee.
But that's a
You know,
really
no,
poor
I
low
don't
bar.
think so.
That Preston, you gotta let me talk. That's a really poor low bar to set for the businesses that we're bringing in. I would rather bring in businesses with a higher bar, the ones who have business plans, who want to be here long term. And they're gonna show us they want to be here long term in order to get our money. And to do that, they should be open for 6 months.
I kind of like to get Larry's perspective on this. This was a good time to be in the crowd.
With the Kelty estate, Tara and I are working on attracting businesses. I want that to be a winery tasting room as well as an Airbnb. So what we're looking at is improving the patio, improving the look and feel of the whole place. So that would interfere. And you've turned it down, and I don't feel it should have been turned down. And in looking at attracting businesses to downtown, that's an impediment. I think we're gonna try and attract businesses that do have a high bar, that make a difference to the eclectic feel of downtown.
And I agree with you for the most part there. First of all, to me, this isn't about Kelty. This is a bigger picture that we shouldn't set policy based on one person. It should be, or one business. It should be a broader policy, right? So if, I don't think it's an impediment at all. This, I mean, the fact that we have this grant available, they just need to wait 6 months to get it. They have to show to us that they're not going to use our money for nothing. And these are people's dollars that live here and pay into the taxes. And I don't think it should be given away to people who just moved in 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago. I think we want to see 6 months of business operation, some commercial activity.
What
that
about
adds
a
to-
review of the business plan of the business going into that building by the council?
My question is, if the goal of the grant is to improve the look of downtown. They come in, they get the grant, they improve it, then sell the building. Did that improve their profit? Maybe, probably. It looks better. But we got it, but the facade's improved. The improvement happened.
But that doesn't.
So a couple things, not to interrupt you, but some background of that. I was not there present for the vote for the other building. It would have been a no for me because the way that I vote is what's put in front of me. These are the parameters that were clearly set by the council with the intention of utilizing the grant money. And the grant money comes from not just one specific source. It doesn't just come from the general fund. You can be more specific about that. But two things, it's not just a grant given, it's a grant match. So they have to have the funds to match it.
Yeah.
So it does improve the building, but it also improves the city. And so if we keep it this way, all of the vacant buildings downtown do not currently qualify.
Correct.
That building did not qualify and the Kelty estate does not qualify based on these parameters. No
Right.
matter what they plan on doing, what their business plan looks like, they simply do not qualify. And the Kelty estate was only granted a yes with the condition that number 2, which keeps them from qualifying, would be changed.
So I think that there's, the way you phrase that maybe a little bit lacking a little context, right? They don't qualify, those buildings don't qualify right now.
correct.
They could very easily qualify in 6 months. And I think I think this is designed to protect the city budget and taxpayer money. And I think it's properly doing so. Those situations you're talking about, I think were properly decided. I don't think this should be changed because somebody came in for a grant and they just don't meet one requirement, so we're putting it in front of you. If they want to get into business and start running their business for 6 months, then they should come see us. That'd be great.
The Ferryman building, Shannon Thorson bought that building, and we were working with her to put a tap house in there as well as other businesses. She had some she's had the Carlton Coast Tavern and Elena's Wine Bar in McMinnville, and that was an exciting thing for downtown.
Yeah.
She had a financial reversal or multiple financial reversals and had to sell the building, unfortunately. And so we have a painted building that's been fixed up, but nobody in it. The Kelty estate, they've spent over $100,000 on trying to make a difference downtown. And Tara, I think needs that from the council and an endorsement of what they're doing, because we're working on that first winery in town, that first brewery. I had a meeting with Kit Johnston this morning talking about Yamhill County helping us do that. So I think if we're prudent and we have people coming in, talking to the facade committee and have a business plan, that this shouldn't be an impediment.
I don't think it is an impediment. And if we're talking about people pouring that kind of money in, then surely they have the operating overhead to last 6 months. And if they don't, then this is what I'm talking about. We don't know if they're going to last. We put in X amount of money and then the business doesn't happen, but the city spent the money.
Mhm.
We're trying to get businesses here. And so in order for them to be long-term businesses, I think the 6 months is important. Otherwise, we paid half the grant to the last folks and they're not there.
Yeah.
That's.
But they also
city money.
matched half of that.
I understand that,
Yeah.
which
The
is
building
good,
does
because
look
it's
way
their
better.
building, they should
Oh,
pay
way
some
better.
for it. But we have put taxpayer money into that building in the interest of developing business, and there's no business there. And so I think that's what this is helping us avoid.
But
I
even
think
with the
this is-
Ferryman building, what they've done will attract business to that building.
Yeah, because it was pretty
because
dilapidated.
It
before
was
those
falling apart.
Yeah.
So I have a question. How do we provide funding? Do we reimburse them? Do we give them the money up front? Like if they spend 5K, do we give them 5K before, or do they spend 10K and we reimburse them half? How's it? What's the process?
Well, like I mentioned, for a 12,500 grant, and we awarded 2 of those.
Well, that's the max number. So I'm just picking any random number, but
Right. So what I've done is fronted the half of the grant. And they proceed, they get the work done, they take out their building permits, yada, yada. And then the other half is not reimbursed until the project's completely done. So that's working out fine with Martha's Tacos. The Ferryman building you discussed. So this county is the number 3 one to come along.
I just think this is a little too fast and loose with city funds. I think that this is just fiscally a little bit irresponsible to remove that requirement.
I wasn't suggesting removing the requirement. I was suggesting putting a requirement on the other end of it so that the building has to be used for a
It's
commercial.
just- At that point,
in a
it's just not,
specific
it's not very enforceable at that point. I mean, you can put a clawback provision all you want, but we've discussed that as a council before, how unlikely those are to actually work out.
Is somebody gonna spend the money if they're not gonna really go into business? I mean, we're matching funds.
Well,
to what-
that just happened. It sounds like that just happened. So,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, but that, I'm not sure that's gonna happen again. That was
not-
unfortunate.
I'm not either, but it could very easily. I mean.
Flipping
it's-
real estate. or-
Yeah, exactly.
But it's,
So I had a question too. In number 2, it talks about for a commercial purpose. What's the definition for commercial? Is it what's in our zoning or what's allowed in commercial versus residential? Is that the only differentiation?
It is, you have to be an approved use within the C1 zone, which is our downtown frontage along highway, along 3rd Street. And there are a couple of places that are C2, but otherwise it's all C1. So whatever's an approved use or commercial, there would work. This would not be for residential use. To be a commercial.
What did the committee think about it? There's how many people? 5,
3.
6, 3?
There's only 3 people on the facade.
Is that enough people?
In my opinion, I think that it would also work with 5 people, only because there was 2 people voting on the last grant. I wasn't able to be there, and so there was 2 people making the decision. So is that enough to put out different ideas or have, different versions of, thoughts
Mhm.
for the process? So for this one, I don't want to say what other people were thinking. However, I am the first person to say, wait a minute, they absolutely do not qualify under the guidelines or the parameters that have been set forth by the council. And so I cannot in good conscience say yes to this. And so we had the conversation. Tara did 100% agree that she knew they didn't make that requirement.
they don't.
And everything that I had said, my arguments
Mhm.
were basically founded. She agreed, her and Janice both agreed with me. The other 2 members basically wanted to say yes, but after I said that, they really just basically, we only voted if the council were to change that. Otherwise, it would definitely be a no for the grant.
So these applications, they make it to a vote without the requirements being checked. Is that right, Preston?
Well, there's a lot of, there's latitude there, but yes, they are looked at, and the committee does the best they can to try and take those guidelines, apply them, and award those grants.
But I mean, it's the same thing with like a development application, right? They have to put all these things in there and it gets voted on based whether everything's included properly. So it usually gets to vote.
Kind of the same, yeah. It's there's a much more legal parameters to a development.
Right, but
Then
you know,
there is-
generally our applications are voted on, but if they're incomplete or don't meet the requirements, they're supposed to be not passed.
So Lee, what you're saying is they complete the renovation, they open an Airbnb, and 6 months later, they can apply for.
6 months later, if they're going to do that much work again, then yes, but I'm not going to reimburse them.
But
for
not
the
to
upfront work.
reimburse the
Right.
original.
Right,
So I asked Tara if there was a scope of work that could be utilized under the guidelines, because there's very specific guidelines on how the money can be used. I mean, there's only 4 parameters for who qualifies, but very specific for what,
Yeah.
you know, and she simply said no, that they cannot open the business as a Airbnb and have guests and then be doing construction
But if
outside.
they
in the-
brought in 6 bouquets of flowers and they opened a flower shop, they could do it. But does the current ordinance say it had to be 6 months in business?
Yes, and
Yeah.
she said that their opening date was sometime midsummer.
Yeah.
And basically, I asked her, because that's why I went into it with like, okay, this absolutely does not qualify and what you are doing. But is there something that would qualify
So they
at a later
opened,
date to come back and ask for, you know,
Yeah.
a grant once you do qualify? And she said there was no,
I mean, we'll get the
So-
grant if it's 6 months
But
later.
that-
But right now, in terms of helping them open a business in town, fixing up a historical building, it's incenting them to do that. So, you know, I understand, and I understand what Lee's saying.
bottom line, they were asked specifically, would this stop the work? And they both said no, that the work is going to continue, the project will get done, they will open the business. They knew going into this that they did not meet that requirement. So
so they're not open for business, or they did open for business?
no, they're not going to be open for
Okay,
business.
because I thought I heard you say they
Summer.
opened for business this past summer.
No,
No, they,
Next
next
summer,
summer they'll be
okay, I
open for
misread.
business.
They are renovating the entire building.
Now, again, I don't want to make changing standards that apply to all. I don't want to make that about one. If that makes sense, right? I don't think we
No.
should make this
I think that's
decision
right.
based on the people right
Yeah.
at hand at this moment, because this policy is something that applies to everybody, not just the applicant. Just, I know we all know that, just a reminder.
Right, but I was making this as a suggestion because there is other vacant buildings
Sure.
that could use some serious facade improvement to bring in a good quality business. And that's what it comes down to. If you are looking for a higher quality business, are they gonna move into a dilapidated and facade improved, needed drastically building? And the answer is probably not. And so
The
that's a
financially,
suggestion.
the financially stable and investment seeking businesses absolutely will, because that's where what's going to be better financially for them, getting into a building like this or going and getting into the brand new built building that's on Third Street in McMinnville. It's financially, it's going to make more sense here. There's going to be highway traffic. It's going to be cheaper to get into, and if they're financially stable, they'll pay for the renovations.
Is there a way the LDA, the Lafayette Downtown Association, can either have a seat on the facade committee or approve a grant request to the council,
Approve a grant request?
recommend to the
Oh.
council
That sounds like a conflict to me.
a specific business in town that wants to, whether it's startup or someone coming to town, they'll come to town if.
Well, everybody can make those recommendations to council. Anyone can make those recommendations to council. I think that having somebody from the Downtown Association on the facade committee might be,
Conflict of interest?
yeah,
Yeah.
that might be dicey.
I completely agree. I do want to throw out the suggestion again that perhaps 3 people is not necessarily enough. That 5 people might be a better
I agree with that.
conversation, so that's something that maybe we can visit. Making a change at least in that positive direction.
I think that's a good idea.
How long has that committee been in existence?
5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, probably about 4 years.
I don't think
5
it's more
years.
than 4. I know it's more than
Oh,
4,
okay.
so 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 or 6, yeah.
So right now it's one from council, one from budget.
No, one from
Planning
council,
commission?
one from planning commission and one from city council. The other is just a
A general
citizen,
public.
a general,
Okay.
a general citizen, yes.
We don't have.
Big interest in downtown. I mean,
Well, yeah.
Well, like any of the other committees, it's not, you know, it's not
It's not
because they
based-
have a position somewhere else, it's because they were interested, applied and appointed.
So there was other, in the application, there was also, was that Jim Jones, the city planner?
No.
Who was it that wrote the letter? I can't remember. I'm horrible with names.
You're talking about our architect.
The architect, yes, did write that he, strongly suggested that we approve it, but again, he is not responsible for voting based on the guidelines.
Right.
So it would be the same as the Downtown Association, strongly wording a letter saying that they suggest that it gets approved. It still has to be voted on based on the parameters put in front of us, like every council decision that I voted on.
Well, I think I'm inclined to, personally, I'm inclined to push this to the next council to vote on. If I was forced to vote on this tonight, I would not approve making the change. I think it should be pushed to the next council unless a vote's forced tonight.
I feel like this change is being brought for one grant applicant.
I've been trying to be specific that
Well,
I'm
well,
also trying to address the other buildings that are vacant to maybe bring.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so please do not think
No,
that,
no, no,
that's
no.
what I'm saying.
No, I think kind of the
Some of
push
these
right
vacant
now.
buildings are residences currently, so, I would hate to,
I think just 1 or 2.
well,
So I mean,
okay, a couple are.
kind of, there's $12,500 on the line tonight, for if it's approved. And that's what I mean. It's this specific change is being brought on because of, one requirement wasn't met. I think if it's prudent to change some of these requirements, that needs to be looked at without this, kind of pending grant. If the LDA wants to suggest maybe, hey, we've looked at some different business plans and we think that tweaking this or that, but just to say, we want this grant to be approved, let's clear this out. I'm not inclined to vote favorably for that tonight. But I definitely welcome change and, progression going forward.
I think we could probably skip a motion.
Christine, you have a question from the crowd there.
All right, do you need me to step up?
You're fine. Only if you want.
My suggestion is I've heard 2 things, the grant requirement. And then is 3 people enough? And I know it's written as that it is these 3 people, so it'd take a whole review. My suggestion, as mentioned, is to push it forward so that it's reviewed as a whole, like it's time to look at the facade grant as a whole, not just this one requirement, but look at the 4 requirements. Are all 4 still appropriate? Is the way the committee is created still appropriate? That way it isn't black and white, oh, there's a grant being requested. It's opening a bigger picture saying, oh, you know what? There's some questions coming up. That's just my suggestion.
So with it in mind, that this could easily come back to council regardless of what happens to it tonight, and given the fact that this is an action item, I'm going to make a motion to reject the proposed modification.
I'll second it.
In favor?
I,
Opposed?
I was gonna abstain. I guess I should have said that ahead of time, but
So is that abstain?
yeah,
All right. Any opposed?
just because
Or
I feel like it's a conflict of something that I was discussing and I'm on the committee, so it's like, I feel like that might be a conflict, so.
That checks out.
So, yeah, I hope,
Let's plan it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I hope it comes up next month
Yeah.
or a
Or
month or
maybe-
two from now.
Maybe not next.
Just
week.
for-
Not next month, but
Maybe in a few months.
We have-
after the new council is in place.
All right,
You too will.
January is a busy agenda month. I doubt it will be on January.
Christine, you have another question?
Travis Johnson, 1002 Market Street. So just checking in on the process and for the record, and a lot of respect for you, Larry. But in this example, if your name and the address wasn't given in your organization, if you're speaking on behalf of the Lafayette Downtown Association, and then again, when Mayor-elect Hillary is just kind of speaking from the crowd without, and when you're watching it on video and when the transcript is scrolling as well, it's super helpful for the record to know who in the audience is speaking. And if you come up here, name and address each time. Otherwise, it just looks like people are just invited up and speaking and then leaving. So respectfully, thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Well, that's-
Thank
It
you.
dawned on me how it was on.
They use-
YouTube.
Fighting on
Yeah.
YouTube, yeah. I
Thank
was
you,
like,
guys.
oh,
All
that's
right,
good.
that's good perspective.
Good input.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's being
yeah,
lazy. Sorry.
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next, we have resolution 22. We have different numbers, 13 or 19. 2213, certification of the November 22 general election results. So my agenda says 19. The staff report says 13. Is 13 correct?
13 is correct, Your Honor.
All right, so these are the results of the 22 general election. They've been certified by the county. Outline, Hillary Malcolmson is mayor. Counselor shall be Joseph Carswell, Michael Shaw, and Joe Johnson. Also that measure 36-218, the water reservoir did pass. Any comments, questions?
It was close again this year too, wasn't
Yes, it was. Another close one.
it?
Oh.
5 votes.
I was impressed with the voter. I was impressed with the voter turnout, though. 57% of midterms actually pretty good. That's pretty darn good.
I move to
Yes,
approve,
Mr. Lafayette.
I move to approve resolution 2022-13, certification of November 2022 general election result.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. All right, for Public Works, we've got our water consumption report. Did anybody have any questions on that? And we had our supplemental Public Works report, and fire. They were here when we got here. Never have a chance to glance those over.
The toy drive donation over?
No, I think they accept till the 15th, or it's the last Friday of. I can tell
Thank you.
you. It's the 16th. Yeah. I
Okay.
bet you it's the 16th. Don't quote me on that because it's usually the third Friday of December. Basically the Friday before Christmas. They do all the toy wrapping that generally, I won't say that is the one, but generally they do the toy wrapping that following week. And deliver Christmas Eve or the day that weekend.
Okay.
So.
On the fire report, it says they were able to hire one person. Do we know if that was for Lafayette or Carlton?
That's for Carlton.
Okay.
And they're hoping to get the second one out of that pool for Lafayette. In be available in January. That's still the plan.
All right. We're trucking along here. Administration.
Things are, just a couple of, notes. Brandon Ross, as you know, his first day with the city is going to be January 9th. We're all, excited about that and, having some overlap with him, and, he's already, sending questions and things, and, so it's an exciting time to have Brandon coming in here next month. And the tree lighting event last Friday was really great. There were a lot of volunteers. Marie was kind of the coordinator. But LCAT, and there was a lot of volunteers. I can't, begin to name them all, but what a nice event. The parks look great, decorations, entertainment, the refreshments and the goodie bags, it just goes on and on. I mean, just Marie Brown did a wonderful job. And maybe Greg, you can comment on some of the things that LCAT did, but what a great turnout, and it just wonderful seeing people, and anyway, great event.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend, but I was able to help, leading up to it a few days and the day of. Santa's bench was my bench. To my front yard. I offered to let you sit on it the other day, Travis, said you were going by, but I know that the Downtown Association had Hamlin's showed up, Lafayette showed up.
And Alex from Abastos.
And Abastos, yes. So, and I was there, when I saw the goodies, I was envious I wasn't able to stick around, and the Hamels, the ballet, I think it started out with 4 girls were going to attend, and I think there was like 18 or something at the end. So
Lots of
I missed that. I didn't see any videos of the little routine they did. I don't even know what the routine was.
That was a great little dance.
But Cert was there. And Marie basically managed it, the whole thing, with input from the core team. There's about 3 of us. But yeah, the pictures on social media, wow, it was unbelievable. So,
Yes, a big thank you for everybody that came out and helped.
yeah, no,
I
it
got
looked
to
like,
hand out candy for Santa, and I had Christine was amazing with the photography. So all of the kids and their families got pictures with Santa.
Any guess on how many people were there?
I'm terrible at guessing.
I heard a guess of about 500.
We had,
Something like that.
we passed out over 150 goodie bags to kids. So there was at least 150 kids present. And then there was a lot of families there with older kids or without kids. And so a good ballpark is.
Some kids without
Yes.
parents.
Yeah, and I think
Everything.
we kind of planned for about 200 folks at each of these different functions we've had, these last 3 or 4 functions we've had. But I think there was a lot more than that.
They had half a muffin.
Yeah, half a muffin.
That's
And
some
we had-
real good planning.
We had 500 or 600 goodies out.
Yeah, no, it
It was a great turnout, and we learned a lot, and we'll be tweaking some things for next year. And like every other event, we just are going to try to grow it and include any and all citizens who want to volunteer in whatever way. Just reach out. We have a Facebook page, and you can contact me directly as well if you want to volunteer in any way.
Sounds good.
I'll be tracking down Christine for photos next year.
Preston, did you have anything else?
Only if there's some inquiries from council about some other issues. The RV issue will be coming back to council on the January agenda to decide. The council meeting's on the 12th. Council had approved an RV temporary permit through the 13th. So you'll decide on the 12th what you want to do on that.
Can somebody reach out to that family and let them know that they should be at that meeting?
You
I
bet.
know they had been asked to be at this one, but maybe a reminder before that meeting that they should probably be in attendance.
They've been working with City Hall the last month. You know,
As I look at the minutes, it says here that we didn't ask them to show up until January 13th or whatever that meeting is.
I'm pretty sure I remember Marie asked them to come back and update on how things were going in terms of housing and.
Yeah. I did see a specific something in here, I'll find it, where they were asked to come on the 13th, but I don't recall anything. Oh, no, are the permits good through the 13th? Excuse me.
so they haven't reached out to City Hall, is what you're saying?
Not that I know of, but they may have. The owner did come in. It stopped in earlier this week with some requests. I don't know about the rest of the family. It could have, I don't know.
Are you gonna, so I remember last month, there were things you weren't willing to discuss in the open meeting. Is that information you're able to provide the council before the January 12th meeting? I think the council deserves to know as much if they're the ones making the decision, is why I asked.
And I sent a memo to council earlier this week on the issue.
Okay,
Yes. If you need to know confidential information, you need to come and see me.
Okay.
Ordinance, code enforcement, I'm sorry.
Yeah, accounts payable and code enforcement. Any questions or concern on either of those?
I had one question on code enforcement, page 51, it's page 2 of 3, but it's page 51. 22-250, it's towards the bottom. I had a complaint of kids upstairs at a residence that burnt down several years ago. That sounds like an attractive nuisance issue. Is the city following up on that with the owner? Because, I mean, it looks like the trespassers were dealt with, but that sounds like, again, an attractive nuisance, which liability would fall on the homeowner. And I think we've got codes that.
Yeah, and without making assumptions, that's probably the property.
Seventh.
So if the sheriff,
on-
if the sheriff responded and trespassed the homeowners, they have to have been informed.
And pardon me, Jim, but which one is that? That doesn't say the address.
I didn't say the address.
House in town.
It's
Two-
22-250.
Okay.
But I mean, a burnt house that sounds like there's readily available access to some teenagers. That's an attractive nuisance. And, if they got hurt, we can't be allowing that. If there's any ordinances that can.
I'd be willing to bet this is the one over off of, is it 6?
I think it's fifth.
I think there's 6,
I
but
think it's-
further.
Okay.
Fifth.
Yeah, it is
Starts
I mean, it was.
correct.
With the
2 or 3
USS
years
Minnow
ago
out
that it
front.
burned
Yeah.
down. I mean, and it's nothing.
Yeah, but if we're having. people
We're
do it,
looking
then-
at 2 years now, or almost 3 maybe with the abatement
Almost.
process.
Closer to 3,
Yeah.
correct. That has been a long time in coming, and it's been a lot of staff work. Yes.
And it sounds like, last I heard, it sounded like it was getting closer to
It's been sold.
being done. It's been sold and
Yes.
they're working through the process. and-
It had to go through probate. And now it has been sold, so we're getting attention on the property, yes.
And I'm almost certain that the Yandell County Sheriff's would reach out to the homeowner.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure they're aware.
Our, with that property in particular, our deputies have been very involved, yes.
And so then there's also 2 other ones on the first page of 50, top page. It looks like they haven't really been updated, one since June and one since September. 2292, I see the last update was 610. And then on 22-206, I see the last update was September. So I'm just pointing out, hasn't been a recent update on those. I don't need one. I'm just pointing it out.
Either resolved or updates.
It's nice that there's only two. I mean,
I know,
agree
really.
that.
Right, but
There's
there used to be a
more
lot
than
more,
what there should
right?
be, but
So, I think,
It's good to have only two.
I think it's starting, it's feeling better, right? The whole report.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's come a long way in a couple of
It
years.
has.
hasn't it?
Sure has.
All right.
As has the sheriff's report.
Mhm.
Any committee reports? Any counselor reports?
I will just say to the outgoing counselors, appreciate all of your work here.
Oh, we'll stick around.
Thank you.
We'll be out there.
Thank you.
But
We're
thank
gonna
you.
bring the popcorn.
Remember to state your name and.
Yes,
For the
we will be
record.
stating.
PO box is okay.
Yeah.
PO box is okay for an address.
Yeah, but no.
Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks for Lafayette, for sure. There was a celebration recognition for Chief Lucid in his retirement. A couple of people in this room were there. It was a very nice shindig put together by Lafayette and Carlton. They presented him with a plaque. Slideshow of his 50 years in the fire service, more than just that half were here in Lafayette. So that was.
He got an axe too.
He did.
Beautiful axe from Carlton and from Lafayette. They're kind of crisscrossed in their
Yeah.
display. Beautiful, yeah.
Some gorgeous stuff. And then later they had a couple days later, they had a pinning ceremony for Tim as new fire chief. Between that and the tree lighting, just lots of big excitement going on around here. I think that's it. This is my last meeting, guys. It's been a real pleasure serving on the council, serving the citizens, working with the city. Good times.
Yes, my last meeting. I'm happy to have served. I look forward to being more hands-on with the Lafayette Community Activities team and working for the citizens in a more hands-on way instead of sitting behind the desk in front of the camera.
Any last words, Greg?
Hasta la vista.
Greg's out. Greg's out.
Well, thank you to all three of you for your time and service on the council. We've agreed on some things, we've disagreed on some things, but I think our goal was all for the betterment of Lafayette, and I've seen that in all three of you and those that aren't here tonight too. So thank you. And
Yeah, I think a lot got done
yeah,
during this term, between elections, so.
I agree.
I'm happy.
And we just had the shortest meeting that we've had in the last 2 years. I won't say 4 because we've actually had one shorter than that. In the last 2 years.
You haven't had a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. I'm just,
You just lost the record.
I just can't make it.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Are you second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, that's your.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Aye.
you're all waiting.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Of course, I kind of wanted to cut you off there.
Absolutely.